I showed it to be 7 o'clock. Let's bring the regular town council meeting for Monday, July 28th in order. If you don't mind, let's pledge allegiance, please, to the flags. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. First item is public input. As always, citizens can make comments to the council. Anything that's either on or off the agenda is their choice for 3 minutes. And we have a sign-up sheet available for us on the side of the room. I have one form right here. Mr. Ted Stranzik is first on the list. Ted, do you have comments?
Mayor, are you going to have open discussion on the agenda items concerning the subdivision ordinance?
Public hearing prior to that?
If not, I'll make my comment.
We'll wait. We can wait for, is that what your subject is? Okay. Does anybody else have anything else for public input on any subjects? And with that, I'll close the public hearing or public input in tonight's meeting, and we'll move on to staff and mayor and council reports and community interest items. Troy, would you have anything you need to report?
Not for this go around. We usually do our staff report on the first meeting of the month, so nothing coming up that we haven't discussed previously.
Any other council members have anything they'd like to discuss as far as okay? Close that item. We'll move on to the next one. Town Copper Canyon Stormwater Management Prevention Program. We have from TNP briefing us tonight on our stormwater prevention program.
Yes, good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm Mandy Clark. I'm with TNP. So we serve as your town engineer, and also we manage your stormwater program. So I'm going to give you all an introduction of what that is and answer any questions that you might have. So
Stand by.
okay, did I do that or did you do that, Troy? I think you did that.
We're trying new technology tonight.
Okay, well, we'll just give it a go, and if I need to tell you next slide, I'll do that. That will work great. So stormwater management, the program, what is it? So it's a program to minimize stormwater pollution into your drinking water, surface water sources. TCEQ regulates it, and the reason that Copper Canyon gets to participate in this program is you're part of the Denton-Lewisville urban area, which is an urban area with a population of greater than 50,000. So any community within that urbanized area has to participate in the program. So what it involves is developing a stormwater management program and annual reporting on that program. It's not working, Troy. So next slide, please. So where did this come from? So this is mandated. It came from the Clean Water Act in 1972. At that time, the EPA developed the National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System. And then they realized, well, we've bitten off more than we can chew, so we're going to delegate that to the state. So the state just changed the national to the Texas Pollutant Discharge Elimination System. And then they said, well, this is a lot of work too. So we're going to delegate that to all of the communities, and we're going to make them report back to us. So this is mandated, and you get to participate in this. And you have been doing it for a while. It's not new to the community. Next slide. So what is a stormwater management program? It's a 5-year program. It's self-governed. It's a rolling program. And it's to protect your stormwater system. So MS4 is just municipal separate storm sewer system. It's just any conveyance of your stormwater. Anytime your stormwater hits the ground and it hits a road, a pipe, a channel, an inlet in the public area space, that is a part of your MS4. Next, please. So, as I said, it's a 5-year program. So, we developed your program in the winter. We turned it in January, and we're waiting on official approval from TCEQ. But until then, we just pretend like it's rolling, and it's not vastly different from what you were already doing. So, it's not a big change. But we develop that. We report on it every year for 5 years, maybe 6, depending on when the TCEQ issues the new permit. And then we write a new one, and then we just start all over, so it just keeps going. Next slide. So it was developed, like I said, back in January. We filed a notice of intent, and we're waiting on that formal approval. And so until then, we just continue on as if it's approved. Next slide. So what is it? So it involves 6 different, what they call minimum control measures. And these are different things, different elements that are intended to protect your stormwater in some way. So I'm going to walk through them, but they involve, public, education. They involve staff operations, education, and how you're handling your facilities. Next slide, please. And then within each one of those, there are a series of best management practices. So those previous topics I just showed you, those are the minimum control measures, and then the best management practices are the specific activities you're doing to support those minimum control measures. Next. So we're going to talk about MCM1, public education and outreach. Next slide, Troy, please. So what is involved in that? I'm sorry, previous slide. Is posting your stormwater program on your website, which y'all are doing. Y'all are going to be working on a program to mark your inlets. That is a little bit new. So, previous to a few years ago, most of your storm drain system was bar ditches and culverts, but now you have some new subdivisions with underground storm drain and inlets. And so marking those inlets is something that we're going to look into doing. And then posting some newsletter articles. Next slide. So here's just some examples. Here's where you have your current, if y'all want to have a little light reading, you can go out there and you can read all of your reports and your program. And then just some examples. The lower left is a little, or right is a little, button that can be put on storm drains as an example. Next slide, please. So then that was kind of how y'all are reaching out to the community. And then the MCM2 is kind of how the public is coming back. So it's public involvement and participation. And so next slide. The 2 things that you picked were doing a booth or a table at one of your public events. And then the other one is kind of a public meeting to go through the program, which is what we're doing tonight. So we'll check that box, and when we do the report next year, we'll have that already done. So, and then the third one is probably what you're thinking about in some ways, is illicit discharge detection and elimination. And these are so the first 2, we got to pick some things that were kind of, things that the town was already doing, but now you have to do all of these no matter what. And so these are things like having a map of your storm drain system so that you know where your outfalls are. So, I'm sorry, next slide, Troy. So what is an illicit discharge? I guess that might be the first thing. An illicit discharge is just anything that you don't want in your storm drain system. So dumping into creeks, cross connections, like you don't want somebody's septic system, tied directly into the creek, wash water, oils, paints, things like that. So next slide. So what you don't want to do is you don't want to dump your RV into a storm drain inlet. And then the one on the left, I found this one on an internet BuzzFeed list about a guy thought it was so clever. It was a great idea that he connected a urinal into his roof drain. So that's not great, so just those are things that we're looking for. So these are the list of things, activities. So it is about having a map so that if something was to be discharged, you can track it back to where it came from. We did staff training last week. And then having a method for people to report issues, knowing what to do, how to respond, who to contact, forms to fill out, because this thing, if there's one thing that it's about documentation and keeping records. So that is what all of this is about. Next slide, please. And then the fourth one is construction site stormwater control. And that's maybe, traditionally that's been probably the biggest problem is new construction and how they're handling their stormwater. And so having an ordinance, you do have an ordinance and it prohibits certain discharges. So we're going to just check that box and review it at some point during the permit period. Having some site plan review procedures, you have those. You have Chris Hartkey here who does a lot of your reviews and inspections as well. And then if somebody were to call in a complaint, what do you do with it? And then staff training, which we also did that last week. So these are the things we're looking at is like, these are not good. And if, surely nothing like that has ever happened in Copper Canyon. This is kind of what we're talking about. So next slide, please. And then post-construction stormwater and new development and redevelopment. So this is about stormwater detention requirements mainly. You have some new development to the south and you have some detention ponds. Next slide. And so this is about making sure that those detention ponds are maintained in an ongoing way. So if the town were to have detention ponds, the town would maintain them. These are detention ponds in a new subdivision and having mechanisms to require ongoing maintenance to make sure that they're functioning correctly, that they're clean, that they're not going to cause potential flooding, because if an outfall is clogged or something like that, there could be some issues. So just ongoing maintenance of those, and you have an agreement in place. And then the last is good housekeeping, pollution prevention and good housekeeping. So that is about how your facilities are maintained. Copper Canyon doesn't have a lot of city facilities. This is pretty much where we're at is pretty much it. And so it is about, next slide, it's about keeping an inventory and making sure that if there were some potential pollutants that you were, tracking it. Many cities might have something like a public works facility or something like that. That's what it's more targeted at, but just making sure you're keeping it clean. So once a year, Troy's gonna do a little walk around and just check it out and fill out a little form. So that's what we're doing there. Next slide. So what is next? It's implementing. So we're in year 1 of this new program. And so we'll just keep track of what's being implemented, send little reminders and make sure we're keeping track of things. And then the annual reports are due in March of the following year. So we have 90 days. So that's it. Questions or discussions?
Troy, have we had any reports of illicit dumping through Safe Built?
No, we've had some people dump on the trailhead on 2499. We've cleaned that up. And they brought the couch or whatnot, whatever it was, they brought it up to our dumpster here in town hall and took care of that. We also do the trail cleanup, so that kind of counts as one of our activities as well. So once a year, twice a year, we do one in the fall, one in the spring. We'll probably bring it up to top dumpster at the trailhead, and then we'll clean up anything that's along the trail as well. So, but as far as a formal complaint about somebody dumping something on the side of the road within Copper Canyon, we have not.
You talked about the retention pond, detention ponds inside the HOAs and stuff like that. They're responsible for making sure those things are kept up,
Yes.
proper maintenance and stuff. Not necessarily
Yes.
Copper Canyon, but the HOA itself is.
Right, and the way, and I haven't taken a deep dive lately into your agreement, but normally it gives you the right to inspect
Oh, yes.
and require reports,
Yes.
but not the obligation. And then you're able, and you have contact information that if somebody complains or if you inspect it and something looks wrong, you can reach out to them and have them fix it.
So here on our recent developments, we have agreements that reflect that. So if we drive by and there's cattails covering the whole entire thing, then we can come and request the HOA to clean that up.
How would we do that if the HOA hasn't been established yet, but the property has already been assigned for development, but there's no property, there are no homes? How do we maintain that if there's no HOA yet?
So the agreement would be part of the approval process. And so the developer would be responsible for maintaining that.
Until,
Until the HOA takes
Okay.
over.
established,
Okay, good.
correct.
Yeah, there's usually like a trigger number of homes that need to be built before that developer turns it over to the homeowners.
That is correct.
Any other questions? Anybody? All right, well, thank you very much. Appreciate the
Great.
briefing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm gonna close down that item, and we'll go to the next item, which will be the public hearing. We'll have a public hearing on the Code of Ordinance for repealing Chapter 10 subdivision, replacing it with a new Chapter 10 subdivision ordinance. And I believe this is where we would have anybody, and we'll start off with Ted Stranzik, if you're ready to make your briefing, your discussion. Thank you, Ted.
Mayor, you'll need to open the public hearing and state the time.
Oh, I'm open public hearing at 6:17, or 7:17, excuse me.
Good evening, council. Thank you for allowing me to speak. This has been a rather arduous program, and I think most of you know that I'm not enthralled with this particular document. And I'd just like to mention a few words in my opinion as to where this particular proposal needs to go. Number one, this project is not complete after 8 months. Should have been done in 3 at max. Significant revisions. I'm going to say you revised this document at least 4 times. North of 200 errors in this document. The vast majority of revisions weren't done by Dunaway, they were done by you and P&Z and the people in this town. Clearly, in my opinion, Dunaway is a charlatan operation. They're completely non-trustworthy. They clearly did not meet their contractual obligations and were overpaid for very little work actually done. I have 3 recommendations. First, do not accept this proposal. Take no action. Second, fire Dunaway. Fire him tonight. Make a motion, get rid of him. Why? They took too long. Too many amateur mistakes. And when I say amateur mistakes, my entire professional career has been in regulatory compliance, FAA. There's not a day goes by that I don't have a regulation that I had to comply with or document. I've written training manuals, maintenance manuals, operational manuals. I know what it takes for compliance. This document is a joke. Now, when I say that, what has been done to this point in time is commendable. But it shouldn't be approved based on the fact that we're paying these people exorbitant amounts of money and they've done nothing. They have failed to comply with their contractual obligations. When I say we need to get rid of them, and they're going to come back and say, well, you know, you can't do that, I've got enough information that I don't care whether we go to court or arbitration. I'm reasonably confident we will be successful in number one, in my last point, and that is recovering all the funds that we gave these people for no work. I mean, this is embarrassing. Shouldn't have happened. I've spent my life running aviation companies, and I've never seen such substandard work by any company to be presented to a public body. And I think we should also take note of the fact that this type of poor vendor selection should never occur again. Thank you.
Thank you, Ted. Appreciate your comments there. Anyone else have any comments for public hearing on the issue? Sir, could you state your name and address for us?
Yes, sir. Rudy Castillo, 3735 Landseer. Good evening, everybody. It's a real pleasure to see all of you here. I wanted to take just a moment to first congratulate all the new members of the council and the mayor. It's really great to see you guys up there, and congratulations. Along that line, I wanted to take a moment just to, in a sense, back up what Ted just discussed. I don't want to spend too much time on negative items, but what I do want to do, because most of you, if not all of you, are new to your positions, although, Mayor, you were on the council before, being mayor's a new thing for you. And the first thing I want to say is, don't do anything that you're not 100% behind, because that's been going on too long. If you're not understanding of what you're voting on, or you don't believe in what you're voting on, then let's talk about it ad nauseum until you guys, who were elected overwhelmingly by the citizens of this town to lead us into a better position. And what I like to say is, if you run into a citizen at Kroger and they ask you, why did you vote for this? You should have a really good answer. You should be able to explain, this is why I voted, these were the issues at play, and I firmly stand behind my vote. And that's how it should always work, because the goal is to move forward in a positive manner, representing what you guys very well know are the desires of the town. In this particular instance with Chapter 10, I agree with Ted. A lot of this was very poorly done. This has taken an inordinate amount of time. We would have been better off sticking this into ChatGPT and say, organize this. And why do I say that? Because I went back at the third time I read this document. Out of curiosity, I thought, I wonder how different this is than our current Chapter 10. And you know what? It's not different. It's reorganized. It's been set up a little bit differently, but it's the exact same information. They've actually added, as all of you know, because I know you all read this, a few items were added. Some of them incorrectly, in my opinion, and Mayor, I sent those to you via email because they're frankly unfair. But I'll leave that discussion to you folks. And the problem with the fact that it's taken this long, and the fact that the majority of the work was done by citizens who volunteered their time to work on this project, and yet it's taken this long, there's something seriously wrong with the administration and the leadership that got us to this point. I am concerned because we keep trying to find out how much was spent on this. Not a lot of answers. The fact is, whatever it was too much, because this could have been done by a computer. And I know that we're, I believe, looking in the future for a P&Z rework and the engineering design manual. The engineering manual is 380 plus pages. That's scary if we've taken this long to work on a 30-page document. So I think that this is I know you inherited this problem, but I think it might be a good time to kind of take a breath. This isn't your fault. You didn't create this, where you are today. You inherited it. But you guys are up to the task of doing a great job for the town. I firmly believe that. So I implore you to take your time, deliberate as long as you need to, and from here on out, let's work at taking the town to where you want to take it, in a good direction. Frankly, looking at this document, I've thought you could put anything in there. Most of it won't get done because we have very little, if any, enforcement. These are issues which, unfortunately, you guys are going to have to solve for us. But we know you can do it. And thank you for your time and for volunteering to help us out.
Thank you for your remarks. Anyone else? Name and address, Mark?
Yes, Mark Pape, 12050 Meadow Lake Drive in Copper Canyon. Certainly no one can disagree with either of the prior two speakers. But the fact that it's taken months and that it was badly done to begin with and that our contractor was bad, to me let's bifurcate, that's old news. we can't go back and fix that. We are where we are. We've got a document that has been beaten up extensively by many, many participants in the town. That's not to say it's perfect. There will always be minor things in it, or maybe major things that need to be adjusted as time goes by. But the fact that it's wasted 8 months when it could have taken 3 shouldn't necessarily mean that we need to take another 2 or 3 more months to do it. This is an important document. Our original ordinance was inadequate, and we knew it. That's why we went on this process to kind of upgrade our ordinance to get it up to the current legal standards as required by the state. And it does have some significant changes in it that help us be more compliant with the state rules. In particular, the charts, the timelines are extremely valuable tools for both developers and our staff. Those did not exist before. So there is a lot of value in the document we've got, and I would like, and certainly I can't argue with Rudy's point, to deliberate, be careful, don't jump to any conclusions. But on the other hand, just because it was badly done to begin with, shouldn't be a reason to not consider it at this time. That's my only point.
Thank you, Mr. Pay, appreciate that. Anyone else, please? With that, I'll close the public hearing on the revision for Chapter 10 subdivision ordinance at 7:28. We'll move on to consent items, and this consent items is administrative routine. Such items considered for approval in a single motion. Tonight, we're consenting to approval of the July 14, 2025 minutes of the council meeting. Is there any discussion on the consent items? With no discussion on the consent items, I'll look for a motion to accept the July 14, 2025 minutes. To approve. Thank you.
I make a motion to approve the July 14th, 2025 minutes of the council meeting.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
With a second, we'll take a vote on the consent item, and all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All against say nay. I'll take that as a unanimous vote for approval of the consent item. Going to the next item would be action and discussion items. First item for action and discussion is discuss, consider, and take action regarding ordinance 2506, repealing Chapter 10 subdivision regulation and Chapter 10A subdivision ordinance in its entirety, replacing with the new Chapter 10 subdivision ordinance. I'll open discussion about that.
Just to kind of highlight how we got here, there's a lot of discussion about getting our subdivision ordinance or our zoning changed as we had these developments come through, the need for it. So we got in there and then realized we got to do the subdivision ordinance before we get to the zoning ordinance. Thank you, Mitch and Mark, for all the work you've done. Ted, I know you said some correct things about our first draft document not being where we wanted to be, but we've definitely put a lot of work into going through it word by word, and quite frankly, it was kind of a big mess, and it forced us to really dive in and read it, and it's really not that much different than what we have. If we pass it tonight, great. If not, then we don't. What we have is genuinely pretty much the same. There's a few little changes, but it's more reorganization and bringing it in line with state regulations, and so on and so forth. But it's not a scary version if it does go through, and there's always amendments that could be made and changes in the future if anybody has any problems. But open that up for further discussion.
And for everyone to understand, Councilman Lippert was on the committee to start off with. He's been following this document for a long time, so he speaks from a lot of work that he did personally, along with other people on this, in the town on this document, so he knows what he's talking about on that. Anybody else have any discussion item for the subject?
So Chase, the overall goal of this was to get us compliant with the changes that were made at the state level in terms of our process.
Right, and there were some immediate changes that we had passed when this came to light that were just copy and paste into our existing ordinance, so we were in line with what we were supposed to have. And then it evolved into this whole rewrite of the document, which is hard because you got an old one and you got to read the new one word for word. But after going through it, I think we've done a pretty good job, and it, it's the meat of it is pretty much the same. It is reorganized, but you do have to definitely go through and say, okay, well, what did really change?
So the process was changed.
Yeah.
Right, so we've got
We
that
changed
accurate now.
a few
Right.
processes in the development steps and what they go through. We eliminated a couple things that were not necessarily required. But that's more of a, ministerial type procedure.
So functionally, it's doing what it's supposed to do. Is
We
that
hope,
fair?
the attorney.
It may be ugly, but it's functionally
Apparently has read
correct.
through it. You've read through it?
I did, and one thing I want to point out regarding it is the numbering in it. The numbering does not match the numbering in the current ordinance, and it does not match the numbering in the rest of your ordinances either. So, I'm not sure what you want to do about that, but if you want the numbering to match the numbering in the rest of your ordinance, you're going to have to note that in the motion, because the numbering is different.
Are you talking about the articles and the numbering in that?
So if you pull up the subdivision ordinance online, it's, this is chapter 10, okay? So then it starts out, chapter 10, and I don't have it pulled up, 10.01, and this one is title. And some of the wording is different, which frankly I didn't, just my view, didn't like some of the wording that was eliminated, frankly, that I think deal with some things that I think are ultimately important, but not, relating to green space and that kind of thing. But specifically, the numbering does not match the rest of your ordinances. So, if this passes exactly as it is, then you're going to have, it's gonna be like chapter 1, 2, 3, 4, then you get down to this one, and it's Article 1, Section 1.1, instead of 10.01 and I understand it gets a little long in the numbers, but I think that's the way the rest of your ordinances are done, and I mean, unless you're planning to change all of your other ordinances, I don't see why you would pass it this way.
Can I just ask a question? And this is from a technical writing standpoint. My concern is that when we're talking about, I'm just referencing earlier when we were doing the workshop. My concern is that when we're talking about that we're holding people to a standard of when we're asking, like, say, Victoria to do a motion, we are saying that if we do not say something correctly from a legal standpoint, that we could be held accountable. So if we pass this and this is not technically correct, then this could hold us in a sort of loophole that a developer could potentially come to us and say, this is not as it's said, 1.0 point whatever. If we say Chris says you are to be in compliance with whatever, if those things do not match, that's a problem. Is that not correct?
Well, I'm saying something a little different. What I'm saying is, if we were to pull up all your ordinances on the screen, it starts out chapter 1 is something, chapter 2, chapter 3, chapter 4, we get down to chapter 10. When you start like this one, the first one's title, so it would be 10.01 title. So it doesn't match the rest of your ordinances, is what I'm saying.
But we can't refer to them correctly then.
Right, I mean, in my view,
It just needs corrected.
Well, that's what I would think, but.
I don't think it's
The restrictive
It's
item,
not wrong,
saying.
it just needs technically corrected.
well, I think what Deborah's saying is you can reference the document, you can reference the items inside that document just by a different format, different numbering system. And we may be changing, you know, because we're gonna be asking you, and I've already asked you, everybody to go through on more ordinances down the road here for our zoning and our things, so we may be changing into this new format. I don't know why the Dunaways did this. Once again, we inherited it, we didn't own it.
Yeah, we
But we're
weren't
gonna own it.
necessarily looking at the numbering system, comparing it to the old one. It was more the words and the meat of
Yes.
the document.
Some of us were though, some of us were looking at some of those technical
Okay.
aspects
Yeah.
and they were noted too.
The numbering can be changed later too.
It is a document that can always be adjusted.
Well, I mean, yeah, of course, you can change anything later, but I'm just saying, you know, if this is going to pass and then you're going to put it online, you got,
Yes.
if it's going to have, its numbering is going to be completely different than every single one of your other ordinances.
Let me ask you this question, Deborah. When you're new reading our ordinances, do you think this numbering system is better than the one we had? You do not?
I do not,
Okay.
so.
Because we'll be moving to chapter 14 shortly, right? So we're gonna have the same numbering.
Yeah, so I think the intent was, you know, the system that we currently have, there were some comments that they're long, they're lengthy, and so I think the attempt was to create a new format. And then from this day forward, when we do the subdivision ordinance, chapter 10, then we move on to 14, we carry this format throughout, looking at the ordinance holistically, even though we're kind of putting together, you know, one car at a time, so to speak, if you're part of a train. But so I think that was the intent, but obviously it didn't turn out that way. So, you know, anytime you're going to transition your ordinances, if you don't do it holistically and you're going to piecemeal it, then you've got to be careful of how you number. Are you going to carry on the same numbering system, or are you going to try to do another method? And I think we were trying to do, Dunaway was trying to create another simplified method by calling them articles versus numbering the way our current system is. And if that's not the desire of the council, then we need to just go back to what we currently have.
We have a problem now.
But
No, I don't disagree.
you know, my concern is, like they said, it's been 9 months. And unfortunately, probably most of us in this, well, definitely anybody sitting here has read this. I've read it like 5 or 6 times. I know people sitting there have read it. I know people in the audience have worked on it. And unfortunately, it took our new attorney, fortunately, to call this to our attention. My question is, the, you know, number that we've paid them, Dunaway or whoever wrote this, took it upon themselves to change our numbering of our ordinances. Did they ask? Did they ask Chase or Mitch or whoever worked on that? Hey, you guys, this is a little antiquated how you have your ordinances here. We think it would be better for you to do it this way, because they don't live here. We do. And the other thing is, in August of last year, this subdivision ordinance was upgraded to make us in compliance with the House bill debacle that we created huge fallout for this town. And so at that point, it was okay. And so now, 9 months later, $40,000, $50,000 down, we have a new council. The 5 people, 6 people that sat here before us had this for 9 months. It's basically the same document that I got January 2025, except for the errors corrected that Ted pointed out, thankfully. And so my question is, they just sort of passed it on down to us and expect us to sit here and go, okay, yeah, you know, it's been a long time, we need to pass it. I personally think that's very disappointing, because we are reading it. I mean, I have all these little tabs here, questions that I have spoken to the most brilliant minds in this town, and nobody can explain one thing to me what that means. And yes, can it be changed later? Sure, but we're just going to be spending more time. You're going to be up here another time. We're still going through this. I just think that that just blows my mind that you pointed that out to us after 9 months. And like I said, Troy, I understand what you're saying, that they thought that maybe we would be going to this, but that's not their call. That's our call. I mean, that's the people of this town's call, how we want to portray our ordinances. And this front page of this is the way we do it. And then we flip over here, and it's not. And that's just unacceptable to me, that we hire somebody to do our ordinances, and they decide that we don't like your format. So that'll be that. I do have other statements, but I'll let that rest for now.
I think my issue is that we've had developers stand up here and quote our own ordinances to us and threaten us, and I don't want to have that happen again. And I'm looking at myself, you know, where we've sat and we've seen little cracks become costly problems. We have the community's trust, and we need to make sure that we're not looking at where we're going to constantly talk about that we're going to go back and Band-Aid situations. I want to make sure that I start, you know, that I look to you all that have done things and say thank you, that I know that you have spent an inordinate amount of time, you know, preparing this, that we are coming in new, and that we don't look to you and say, you know, that we don't appreciate what has happened. I think the problem is that there are these technical errors, and I'm fearful of what is going to come out of this. And that when I look at that, we are trying to make state law, but there is no reason that we cannot add protection and strengthen our position so that we don't have these issues, that there are not some targeted clarifications that can be made with what is already built to ensure that we're not going to have, you know, we're not asking that every change happen. We're not asking that everything be tied up, but we cannot say that good enough that they're not going to test the line, that there's not going to be, some issues that if we don't look at these corners, that we're not going to have some kind of problem here. There's going to be a problem. I just, this does not look right.
Okay, so
Okay.
the end goal, going back to the beginning, is to get to our zoning ordinance, and it was explained over and over to us that we had to take care of the subdivision ordinance to get to the zoning ordinance. And so we've done what we've done so far. If the numbering system isn't kosher to everybody, that's a pretty easy thing to fix. But remember, we've got to get this step out of the way to get to the next one that we were originally intending to work on.
Mr. Mayor, is it possible to open the public hearing again? I know it was closed, but I can add a little more commentary.
Yeah, let me check one thing. Does anybody else have any comments right now before we reopen the public input for this subject at all? All right, I will terminate the council discussion on this and reopen public input for this subject on the Section 10 ordinance at 7:45. Public hearing. What is that? Anybody have anything to discuss? Thank you. Okay.
Mitch Dornick, 980 Great Myrtle Lane. So I've been involved in this from the very beginning, and I'm on planning and zoning for the benefit of those that aren't aware of that. And I volunteered for this because we knew we needed to fix the zoning ordinances, as Chase just said. What we found, though, and we found this through P&Z, was that we had violations to state ordinances around how our processes worked. And so we had an oh, you know what moment and felt like we needed to fix it. The initial plan was that this was going to be addressed within the volunteer group, not by hiring professionals. When we found that we were in violation of state law, it was like, okay, maybe we shouldn't trust the volunteers to interpret state law. And so that's when Dunaway came on the scene, and the conversation of Dunaway came on the scene. As I understand, and it was not just about this. The reality is that our zoning, everything in our town, is a patchwork built over decades, right? And so what was the decision, as I understand it, was let's look at where we are. Let's have somebody who does this for a living evaluate the entire subdivision ordinance to make sure that we are completely legal, not just on the one issue that popped up, but that there aren't things that bite us later on. So that's why this took so long, okay? And as I understand it, what Dunaway did was they started with a standard that they have used everywhere they have worked, every community they've worked in. So if the numbering system is different, that's most likely the reason why, okay? But they started with a framework that they knew complied. And then we made sure that the specific dimensions of our town were mapped into that correctly. There were a lot of things in there that were designed for larger towns than ours that we had them take back. But I struggle with a numbering system being a reason not to approve this, right? We can modify a numbering system. We can do that in 30 minutes with a computer. The reality is we focused on the content. So shame on us if we missed the numbering system. We focused on content. We focused on trying to make sure that this was a document that would live for some period of time that wouldn't expose the city again. So that's the background. Thanks. Appreciate your opening up again.
Anybody else in public input?
I just wanted to add a little bit to this discussion, and certainly my comments, and I believe any of the comments that relate to how much time that has taken is not at all reflective of what you gentlemen have done. Chase, the time that you've spent, I mean, so many people in the town gave a ton of time that they could have been with their families, that they could have been out goofing off or doing what they enjoy. But they gave up the time to do the work. Nobody, I think, is trying to diminish that. My position, and this is just strictly because of my upbringing and my background, is that you folks are the ultimate authorities of this town, period. That's just the way it is. And so from my perspective, if you're gonna pass an ordinance that affects all the citizens of our town, it should be correct, period. At least as best as you can get it at that moment. There may be an error in it, we all understand that. Now, as far as the issues of how we got here, I was sitting right up there when this happened. And there's a lot of stuff I can't discuss, but what I will tell you is that it was very scary and it was critical that we fix the problems that we had. However, those problems were in a short term fixed. May have been cut and paste, but they work. And they've gotten us through 8 months of waiting. So the point I was trying to get at earlier is, let's do it correctly. Because we've spent 8 months already, there is no need for you to go rushing through this as a new group with not 100% of surety that this is the document you want to be backed by. Because the people that are going to come and point out your errors are attorneys. And you're not going to like that one bit. It's not a lot of fun. So listen to your attorney, get the best guidance you can, because when it comes to that, we're all amateurs. That's not our job. We're not attorneys. We have airline pilots and people that have done 1,000 other jobs. So this is a tough thing to do. But because of that, I would like to see where if you're going to redo an ordinance, do it 100% correct so that when it's passed, it's done. Now, if 6 months from now, everybody goes, oh my gosh, we missed this, or this doesn't apply to the town, well, we'll fix that. But just because 8 months have gone by and we've spent who knows how many thousands of dollars, doesn't mean you have to pass it tonight. And that's no negative on the work you gentlemen have done, because you've done an extraordinary job. And we are very grateful for that. But we should set a higher standard for you folks sitting up there. Let's get stuff done correctly. It's not that difficult. If the numbering needs to be redone, which, by the way, due to my background, I love our numbering system. Because if somebody quotes to me, hey, in 10.6.2, I immediately, if I'm familiar with the ordinances, know, oh, wait, that relates to subdivision. Or if somebody says chapter 14, I know they're talking about zoning. Or whatever chapter they're referring to, I might know what they're talking about. And that's why the numbering is important. You know about that because all our paperwork was by chapter, by system, so that if somebody said something to you, you knew what they were talking about. And I think that that's why those little things are important. So I urge you to just take your time and don't be pressured into, hey, let's just get this done and move on to the next thing. Because now you've created an environment where we have a quasi-okay ordinance that now needs to be fixed at some later date. And we're right back to where we started. And you guys haven't even gotten to discuss some of the issues that are in the current proposed ordinance that may not be satisfactory to our town. And one of the difficult issues that y'all are gonna have is that we are such a small, such a quaint little town that a lot of the stuff that larger corporations are used to doing doesn't play here. We don't like them doing that, and they don't understand us. So having groups of volunteers work first might be the solution to get at least a very solid framework of what it is that we want. Then you can give it to an attorney, then you can give it to a professional that understands current state law and say, what have we missed? What is it that we don't know? Because there's a lot that we don't know. But I think that might be a quicker way of getting things done the way we want and the way you as a council are gonna want.
All right, thank you, really appreciate it. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
You all have inherited a mess. I am so sorry. This is the first of your ordinances, major ordinances, to pass. Please don't start with a flawed ordinance. I'm not talking about the numbering. I'm talking about the fact that this ordinance needs a professional to do it, not anybody at the council or sitting out in the ordinance, but a professional who knows what they're doing and knows that we're a small town and tailors the ordinance to this. But don't start with a flawed ordinance as your very first one. You've still got zoning to go and other things.
Thank you, appreciate it. Any other public input? Mr. Stranzik? Could you limit your time to 3 minutes? Maximum.
There's an old saying that says, I'll just forget it. Is good enough good enough? I don't think it is at all. And this is not to discount, as my colleague has said, any of the work that's been done by all the people in this room. And believe me, you are to be commended for doing that. But we're dealing with a flawed vendor. And that's going to come back to haunt us when it's all said and done. You take this into court, are they really going to be behind what they've presented to us for approval? Because once we approve it, it's ours. It's no longer theirs, and they can go on to Argyle and do their big development. We need to look at this thing, not just 10 and 10A, but 1 through 14. And somebody out there who can handle it at that level without all of the input, which has been, quite frankly, outstanding. And Chase, you've done a great job. It's not easy to do that in these circumstances at all. But we're a unique town. We want to protect that uniqueness and not just give it away or jeopardize it by some careless moves. So I would encourage that there be a little bit more introspectiveness involved here, and also maybe looking elsewhere for guidance. Thank you.
Finally, once again, anybody else for public hearing? At that time, I'll close the public hearing here at 7:55. And reopen the council discussion on the subject of Chapter 10 subdivision ordinance. Any other comments by the council members?
I'd like to make a comment.
Please.
So So I don't think, I think it's flawed, but I don't think it's as flawed as it was. My worry is that it has been mentioned by everybody here and those that commented from the public that we basically inherited this document, but we are the ones that are going to be approving it. And we are the ones that are going to be held responsible for it, even though we were not the ones, the majority of us were not the ones that worked on it. So if we're going to be held responsible for it, let's make sure that it is closer to our work, that we do take the time to renumber it and reword it the way it's supposed to. I agree with what Rudy was saying, that, you know, we have code enforcement issues in our town. So we want to make sure that these ordinances are as tight as possible so that when it does come time that we can get our code enforcement issues solved, it will have some teeth. So I'm not saying that we need to take 8 months. I think we need to, if we don't approve it today, then we need to create a hard line deadline. And that means that, you know, we work, you know, overtime, but we do it and we do it right and we get it numbered correctly and we get it as tight as possible so that we do not have to keep making these amendments.
Okay. Councilman Dole, do you have a question? Comment?
Just a question for the attorney. So we've changed our process internally to comply with state changes. Right. So the fact that it's not in an approved ordinance, there's no liability?
What do you mean not in an approved?
Well, I mean, we've changed the process in the ordinance, but we haven't approved it yet. I mean, we're doing the things right internally.
Well, what my understanding is, when I was looking at this ordinance, that this ordinance was changed in August of 2024, is that correct? And what my understanding was, is those changes were the changes that needed to be made.
To make us state
Those are the
compliant.
primary, right.
So
right.
your ordinance is compliant now, you know.
Okay.
My comment about the numbering was simply to point that out. If you pass this tonight, you could correct the numbering to tie in with your,
Right.
your current ordinance. But, so, you know,
It can pass with an adjustment amendment with the numbering thing. Troy, let me ask you this question. Was the intent of the change in the numbering, was it to bring all of our ordinances over to this new system, new numbering system?
Correct, Mayor, that was my understanding.
That was what we were
gonna
trying to get to.
Move in that direction, and we were gonna take the next one, and the next one, and then bring it into this numbering system. That, I believe, may have been the intent.
So that's the purpose to that.
So,
Is it my understanding, you are our new representation, and you have concerns about some of the wording as you have reviewed it?
well, I did have some concerns about some of the wording, yes. Now, whether that, I mean, and I did briefly speak with the mayor about some of those concerns, but, you know, the main thing that I wanted to point out was the numbering. And I mean, council can do it however they want to do it. You know, they could decide to change all the numbering in the ordinances, you know, so it follows everything, or they could keep it so it follows this pattern, or they could revert this back to the 10.0.01, however, you know, that is. So, and obviously, it's the council's decision on whether or not
Obviously.
the ordinance passes, so.
But you do not like some of the wording as you see it,
Well, that is.
which you have already stated.
Well, and I'll just
But
say,
that's not, it's not from, let me emphasize, it's not from a legal.
not from a legal perspective, and I will
But
say
from
this.
Not from a legal standpoint, but from having been on a council standpoint, like what, from what perspective then?
Well, from the perspective of, and, you know, not, from the perspective of just certain language that I think towns and cities can rely on in trying to enforce their ordinances as it relates to different items. But again, not from a legal perspective, okay? But but the main thing that I did just want to point out was the numbering, and that is something, again, that if you chose to pass the ordinance, you could pass the ordinance subject to renumbering in line with the current numbers, or pass it as is. So whatever y'all decide.
But I think there's some concerns about content though, too,
Yes,
with some folks, right? There's some items that,
yes.
above and beyond numbering, that we're not okay with,
Correct.
that need
I
to be
have a-
changed.
I have
One
not
big
addressed all mine.
issue that I have asked, not within the council, because we wouldn't do that, but people that worked on this, as I said, people that know and have lived in this town for a long time and worked on different boards and commissions. It's a little bit, to me, it seems like we're a unique town, as we know. We've got large landowners, we've got people that own 100 acres, we've got people that are grateful to have 2 acres and 1 acre. And if you go, I'm just gonna pull it up, on page 9, building permits, kind of goes with what Victoria was talking about with Safe Built, when we start getting into permits and all that. And I'm just gonna read it. No building permit shall be issued for any structure on unplatted property that is less than 5 acres. And so I've asked everybody, I met with Troy about this, and basically, if you have 5 or under acres, you must have a plat. So if you want to build a shed or something for your lawnmower, you move into a new home and you live on 2 acres, you must have a plat. And I got, what the explanation I got was, well, pretty much everybody in town has a plat. And that's how we want to go. We want everyone to have a plat. The truth is that I think I heard the number, about 45% of people in town have plats. And to me, that puts an undue burden on people that move into town with 5 or under acres. They buy their dream home on 2 acres, and now they find out they don't have a plat, and now they have to spend $5,000, $7,000 on a plat. Now, somebody that has 100 acres or 20 acres or 30 acres doesn't need one. All they need is their survey by a licensed surveyor, reflecting the zoning setback, easements, boundaries, and a legal description. My question is, that to me is prejudicial, because just because we have 2 acres, why do we need to get a plat when, you know, the Liberts have 100 acres and they don't need it? And I'm not picking on Chase, because he knows that I've tried to settle this. To me, it just doesn't seem fair that anyone under 5 acres and under has to have a plat. And so I don't feel comfortable with that in there, because there's a lot of people in this town that have under 5 acres.
There's
So-
a lot of unplatted parcels that if somebody wants to expand their house by just a few feet would be triggered by the platting process, which is very expensive. And I don't think that's necessarily the nature of our town. Maybe a larger city and for subdivisions with many new lots coming in, but that's gonna affect quite a few folks.
Right.
And probably something we should look at getting revised.
I mean, that, I don't even know why that would be in there. It's just, it's not fair to people in this town when you have so many different lot sizes or acreage sizes. But anyway, if somebody can explain that to me, although I've asked like 6 people in the last month, and everybody said, wow, that's a really good question.
Yeah, I was kind of thinking about that when it got brought up. Is it terrible that somebody has a house on an unplatted parcel or wants to expand it? Is the world going to fall apart if they don't have a plat? I mean, we've kind of gotten by pretty good, Copper Canyon has. I think what happened with this document is it was intended for subdivisions, developments, but it has an overreaching trigger for, you know, unintended consequences to, you know, mainly existing citizens that have unplatted parcels that, you know, they want to go do something with the land. Thank you for bringing that up. I think it's very important that we talk about that.
Anybody else have any other discussion points? I think we run through quite a few things, and if it's okay, I'll terminate the discussion by the council on this subject. And let's look for a motion on number one item, discussion on the subdivision ordinance, chapter 10, replacing it with the new subdivision chapter 10 ordinance. Do I have a motion? Hearing no motion, we'll table that issue for further on and future discussion in the near future. Is that proper? Can I'm asking for a vote on a motion for vote on the tabling of the ordinance.
I make a motion that we table the ordinance.
What ordinance?
Section-
Oh, sorry.
subdivision 10.
I make a motion that we table the ordinance 25, the voting on the ordinance 25-006, repealing Chapter 10 subdivision regulation and Chapter 10A subdivision ordinance in its entirety.
Have a second?
Second.
We have a second. I'll take a vote. All in favor of tabling the ordinance 2506, Chapter 10 subdivision regulations, Section 10A, replacing it? Oh,
You need to table it for time certain.
okay. Let's table it till September. Oh, you gotta put the motion forward.
Do we have a date?
Maybe you want to ask to amend your motion.
Okay, I'll amend my motion, but I need a date. When do we think we can fit it on on the agenda?
Not
Kind of short, October?
Can we say until after a work session on this topic? Instead of giving a date?
Make it October.
How can they just deny it? Or bring it up later? Well, yeah, you could deny it too. I mean, you could deny the.
So just make a motion till we vote on it and,
vote on it,
and
vote
no
on it.
second.
Yeah.
I'll do that. All right,
You have to amend your motion.
so I'm going to amend my motion. I'd like to make a motion that we approve ordinance 25-006.
Deny.
Do we deny? Don't we have to, if there's no, do you not want to do, if there's no second, it's automatically denied?
Okay. Are you making a motion to table?
No, I thought we were just to deny it.
Okay, so then why would you say motion to approve?
And then when there's no second, there's no approval. Isn't it denied then?
Why should you? To deny.
Okay.
You need to make a motion to deny,
Amend your,
the-
amend your
yeah,
table
amend your
motion.
Okay.
motion to deny, and I don't have the exact.
I have it, yeah, I have it here.
Okay.
Okay, I make a
25-006.
I make a motion to deny ordinance 25-006, repealing Chapter 10 subdivision regulation and Chapter 10A subdivision ordinance in its entirety, and replacing it with new Chapter 10 subdivision ordinance.
Take a second on that motion.
I'll second the motion.
It's been seconded, and we'll have a vote on the denying the replacing of the current ordinance 2506 with the new Chapter 10 subdivision ordinance. All those in favor of denying this revision, say aye.
Aye.
All those in favor of opposed, say nay. Passed unanimously. That has been denied as far as the ordinance goes. Next subject is discussion and hearing schedule for the budget scheduling of August, hearings in August 25th, 2025, public hearing for proposed fiscal year 2025-2026 budget. Another adoption of the ordinance at August 25th, adoption of said fiscal year budget 2025-2026 budget, and then another public hearing on September 8th for the public hearing considering the proposed tax rate. So this is just setting up the dates for the meetings for approval of the budget for next year and also the tax rate for next year. I'll open discussion on that, on setting those dates for those meetings. Anybody have any issues with those dates? And I'll close that discussion and open up take a motion for a vote on consideration and taking action on scheduling those three meetings, the 25th of 2025, August 25th, for those two issues, fiscal year budget and also proposed fiscal year budget public hearing, and September 8th, public hearing to consider the proposed tax rate.
I make a motion that we approve the scheduling on August 25th, 2025 for the public hearing on the proposed fiscal year 2025-2026 budget, August 25th, 2025 for the adoption of fiscal year 2025-2026 budget, and then September 8th, 2025 for the public hearing to consider the proposed tax rate.
Do I have a second on that motion?
I'll second.
And that motion's been seconded. And all those in favor of adopting those dates for scheduling, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say nay. And that has been adopted for those dates for scheduling those meetings. Next, the town council is going to go to executive session concerning pursuant to section 551.074A1 Texas Government Code, personnel matters to discuss employee COLA increases for fiscal year 2025 and 2026. I will close the meeting, open up the executive session at 8:13. Yeah, we're going over here. All right, I'm going to close the executive session at 8:40, and no action was taken in the
No
executive
action
session.
needs to be taken as a result of the executive session.
No action needs to be taken as a result of the executive
You
session.
can't vote in executive session.
No. Okay. Let me get to my cheat sheet here. Next item, final item is discussion of future agenda items. Any council member may request an item be placed on subsequent agenda items for consideration. Does anybody have any agenda items they wish to present for the next meeting, which will be in August? That they know of.
Do we want the budget and investment policy and the preliminary budget, do we want to call that out?
Yeah, that would come, prior to you approving the budget, we would approve the proposed budgetary policy and also the investment policy that the committee's been working on.
Yep.
So that would either come in the first August meeting or the second.
And then just a heads up on the tree ordinance, so as part of that chapter 10 project, the tree ordinance was pulled out. So there'll be a new tree ordinance coming forward.
Correct.
Now we just have to find the date though.
Yep, by the date renumbered.
Did you number it like the currently new substitutes, chapter 10, or did you number it as the old format?
It is the old format, actually.
Okay. Okay. No other items then for that? For a motion for adjournment?
I make a motion, we adjourn.
Second. And we have a second on that motion, and everybody, anyone, all in favor of the of adjourning, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say nay. We are adjourned as of 8:44 p.m.